Where did they build a Catholic chapel at an airport?
What Protestant church keeps changing location?
Why are synagogues being prefabricated?
Industry on Parade. Peabody Award winner for public service, produced on film each week by the National Association of Manufacturers.
A shopper in search of products she and her family need, or perhaps just want, engaging in a practice called bargain hunting. The abundance of attractive goods on display in U.S. stores places something of a burden on the bargain hunter, calling for a large measure of willpower. It has been said that Americans are a materialistic people, interested only in obtaining and enjoying physical possessions. But how does this charge actually fit the facts? What, for example, is the attitude of us supposedly self-indulgent lovers of luxury toward the subject of religion? From all evidence, it would appear that while economic freedom has been creating an unprecedentedly high standard of living, the constitutional guarantees of religious freedom have produced similar results, creating a climate in which religions of all denominations flourish, with church membership increasing at twice the rate of the growth of the population. This is a film report on an apparent contradiction in our national character that really is no contradiction at all.
Our early American ancestors saw no conflict whatever between their devout religious convictions and their equally deep faith in the need for economic progress, the need to better man's lot while he is still on earth. Some early immigrants came here because of religious persecution, some because of economic repression. And today, though the method of migrating has changed, the freedoms in all phases of life practiced here are still sought by those who come to our shores. In this chapel at New York's International Airport, built with the cooperation of companies using the airport facilities, new arrivals of the Roman Catholic faith can meditate and pray side by side with co-religionists who are outward bound, headed for destinations all over the globe.
"600 miles west of Idlewild Airport, at a huge construction site in Ohio, a chapel of less imposing dimensions but equally impressive results rolls through the streets of a sprawling trailer camp that thousands of workers regard as their hometown until the day when they will move on to the next big job. It's a chapel on wheels, a trailer chapel that in the course of a week is the scene of services at a number of points in a 4-county area over which are scattered 22,000 migratory construction workers and their families. The Reverend John Gensel is a migratory worker too. He's always on the move, tending to the Lord's work, in a good-sized city that never stays in one place. Among these people, everything is temporary, even the cross that marks the site of today's meeting. Everything temporary, but the unchanging relationship of man to God. Sent out by the National Council of Churches, Reverend Gensel is one of a number of ministers similarly equipped to bring to families on the move the religious help and guidance the rest of us enjoy, giving those who rove a fixed point of reference, a landmark, a permanent spiritual home.
A minister whose congregation consists solely of several thousand steel workers is Reverend James Workman, an industrial chaplain at a steel mill in Lone Star, Texas. Like the chaplains in the armed services, he listens to and advises those who come to him in trouble. His base of operations is a beautiful chapel in a secluded wooded area right on the steel company grounds. To this non-denominational retreat come men of all faiths with all sorts of human problems for a few minutes of prayer. The scriptures and symbols of each of the 3 major faiths are ready at hand to assist a man in renewing his contact with the greatest source of strength of all.
At a box company in Plymouth, Indiana, a firm that makes a practice of employing elderly workers, the employees got together a few years ago and decided it would be a good thing to hold regular weekly church services in the shipping department during lunch hour. Observing how well and regularly attended the services were, the company management fitted out a more appropriate chapel. And now, every Wednesday, work stops for an hour or so for prayer, hymns, and a 5-minute sermon, all on company time. Then back to the job, refreshed in faith.
Most Americans, of course, use conventional houses of worship, springing up all over the land in the great resurgence of religious fervor. Church membership in America is increasing at twice the rate of the growth of our population. There are now more than 103 million Americans formerly associated with church or synagogue. Last year, the nation's church building program hit a high of $775 million, a rise of 40 millions over the year before.
Providing houses of worship, new and old, with the fixtures, furniture, furnishings, and supplies they require, represents a considerable share of the activities of some industries. For example, such provision accounts for a sizable percentage of the total national consumption of candles.
For the craftsmen who produce noble instruments like the pipe organs that fill our churches and cathedrals with inspiring music, the day's work is frequently a part of their religion. For the majestic tones their handiwork will give forth, will sing the praises of the Almighty for decades to come. But many thousands of persons engaged in work less directly associated with the church than the manufacture of pipe organs or, as here, church furniture, derive a similar spiritual satisfaction from what they do. By means of their labor, they exercise their personal responsibilities to their fellow men and through them to God. In turning out items for religious use, especially those needed in large quantity, industry applies the same mass production methods that bring down the cost of any product. One master carving can be used as a guide for the machines in the making of a number of accurate reproductions.
American congregations have reflected the national pioneering spirit in the field of art by accepting, in fact encouraging, the use of new materials, new approaches in portraying the age-old truths. But in the making of stained glass windows, a design for which we see being traced here, manufacturers have had to revive an age-old craft that lay in disuse for most of 2 centuries. Precise shades are selected for each part of the jigsaw puzzle. And for each color, there might be as many as 50 different shades from which to choose. Using the paper cutouts or cartoons as his guide, a skilled glass cutter prepares the intricately shaped pieces that will become part of a translucent, colorful mosaic. The numerous glass segments will be put together temporarily with beeswax for inspection, then bonded permanently with molten lead. After many weeks of painstaking, devoted craftsmanship, the stained glass window section finally is ready for installation, in all likelihood, in one of the new houses of worship, which, as we've said, are going up at an unprecedented rate.
Here in Cincinnati, we see the erection of a new synagogue, a prefabricated structure designed by U.S. Steel Homes to meet a special need in present-day America. In downtown Cincinnati, as in other large cities, there are many spacious, beautiful temples, but with the big move to the suburbs, with families by the thousands being scattered thinly 10, 15, or 20 miles outside of town, there arises a problem peculiar to Americans of Orthodox Jewish faith who are forbidden to use automobiles, buses, or trains on the Sabbath. And there are frequently too few of them in one area to form a congregation large enough to build an imposing temple like this. The answer in suburban communities can be the prefabricated building, easily modified to become a religious structure with large rooms and plenty of them. Now it's possible for comparatively small congregations of any faith to have their own religious centers adequate to their needs and also to their economic means. Here at Goodis Israel, the congregation has, right within the immediate community, a synagogue that, while small and not too costly, retains the proper atmosphere for worship. Here, the ritual is performed for adult members of the congregation. From its resting place in the Holy of Holies is removed the Torah, the scroll on which is inscribed the law of Moses. Excerpts will be read aloud during the service. In America, the most persecuted religious group in history has found the freedom to practice its faith openly, without fear of a mailed fist pounding on the door. American Jews have found also the joy and satisfaction of seeing their children adequately instructed in the ancient laws without the likelihood of their ever having to face the dangers many of their parents and grandparents experienced.
Helping to ensure continued religious freedom for all citizens is a vigorous, well-informed clergy. Here, future ministers, seminarians from a Massachusetts Theological School, work with a railroad gang during a summer recess, learning the realities of the life of the people for whom they will become spiritual leaders. And at frequent meetings all over the country, clergymen get together with business and industrial leaders to promote better understanding of each other's problems to the mutual benefit of both and of the community at large. Basically, though perhaps for differing reasons, the concern of both groups is primarily the betterment of the community. Such clergy industry councils organized on a local level are bringing to our religious leaders a broader understanding of economic and social factors that play an important part in the life of the people of their congregations. And unquestionably, the influence of the clergy has had a great deal to do with the developing of the high standard of ethics generally prevailing in today's business world. Only in a healthy, thriving democracy can we preserve the religious, political, academic, and economic freedoms that will maintain our way of life. And let us go on making it constantly better while rendering unto God in ever greater measure the things that are His.
NAM's Industry on Parade, portraying the ways in which our faith in these abiding principles helps make this country great, has been selected for viewing by our armed forces overseas.